A small shoe print in the mud leading away from the highway. A backpack double-wrapped in black plastic trash bags and buried 26 miles from where she was last seen. A child described as terrified of the dark, voluntarily walking alone on a rainy highway at 3 a.m. These are the haunting details that make the disappearance of 9-year-old Asha Degree one of the most perplexing missing child cases in American history. In the dead of night on February 14, 2000, security cameras captured the small figure of a child walking along Highway 18 in rural North Carolina. Two truckers independently reported seeing her, a little girl in a white shirt, walking alone in the pouring rain. When one turned around to check on her, she vanished into the thick woods beside the road. It was the last confirmed sighting of Asha Degree. Her bed was found empty that morning with no signs of forced entry, no evidence of abduction from her home. All doors were locked from the inside. Somehow, this shy, well-behaved 9-year-old had packed her backpack, left her house voluntarily at 2:30 in the morning during a rainstorm and walked along a dark highway alone. What happened to Asha Degree? How does a child afraid of the dark voluntarily leave her home in the middle of a stormy night? And why, after 25 years, do we still have no answers? Hello, true crime enthusiasts. Today we're diving deep into one of the most baffling child disappearance cases that continues to haunt investigators and communities alike. The story of Asha Degree defies explanation and challenges everything we think we know about child behavior and missing persons cases. To understand what makes this case so utterly confounding, we need to start by setting the scene. Shelby, North Carolina, February 13, 2000. A quiet, tight-knit community where the Degree family was well-respected and known by everyone. Harold and Aquila Degree were raising their two children, 9-year-old Asha and her 10-year-old brother O'Brien, in a modest home on Oakcrest Drive. By all accounts, they were a loving, structured family with strong values and deep ties to their community. Both parents worked shifts at local factories to provide for their children. They attended church regularly. The family had strict rules. The children weren't allowed to date until age 16 and weren't even permitted to stay overnight at friends' houses. This was not a household where children ran wild or parental supervision was lax. Quite the opposite. The day before Asha disappeared was an ordinary Sunday. The family attended church in the morning, then visited Asha's aunt, before returning home for lunch. That afternoon, Asha and O'Brien played together while their father watched a basketball game on TV. When their mother returned from work, the family shared dinner together. Later that evening, the children watched TV before heading to bed around 8:30 p.m. Everything seemed completely normal. There were no fights, no unusual behaviors, nothing that would signal the incomprehensible events about to unfold. According to statements from her parents and teachers, nothing unusual had occurred in the days leading up to her disappearance. Asha was described as a good student, quiet, well-behaved, and conscientious. She played basketball for her school team and had just experienced her first loss that weekend. While she was initially upset about the loss, her parents said she had quickly bounced back and seemed her normal self by Sunday. Now, during the night of February 13th going into the early hours of February 14th, Valentine's Day, something happened that set in motion a chain of events that remain unexplained to this day. Around 2:30 a.m. on Valentine's Day, Harold Degree, Asha's father, checked on his children before going to bed after finishing his shift. Both Asha and O'Brien were asleep in their beds. The house was quiet and secure. Everything appeared normal. Approximately 45 minutes later, at around 3:15 a.m., a semi-truck driver was traveling north on Highway 18, about a mile from the Degree home, when his headlights illuminated a startling sight. A young girl wearing a white shirt walking alongside the highway. It was raining heavily, with gusting winds making conditions even more treacherous. The driver thought it was extremely unusual to see a small child out alone at that hour and in those weather conditions. Concerned, he turned his truck around to check on her. But by the time he circled back, she had disappeared into the dense woods beside the road. Shortly after, another trucker reported a similar sighting at almost the same location. This second witness also described seeing a young girl walking along Highway 18 in the rain. Two independent witnesses had spotted what was almost certainly Asha Degree walking alone in dangerous conditions in the middle of the night. Strangely, neither of these truckers immediately reported what they'd seen to police. It wasn't until Asha was reported missing and news of her disappearance spread throughout the community that they came forward with this critical information. The Degree family didn't discover Asha was missing until around 6:30 a.m. when her mother, Aquila, went to wake the children for school. Upon entering the bedroom that Asha shared with her brother, Aquila found her daughter's bed empty. O'Brien was still asleep and hadn't heard his sister leave. The family immediately began frantically searching their home, checking closets, under beds, and throughout the house. There was no sign of forced entry or struggle anywhere in the home. All doors were locked from the inside, and the only thing out of place was a green bookmarker she'd used to hold her spot in a book. It was positioned differently than usual. After searching the immediate vicinity of their home and neighborhood, the family called the police at 6:39 a.m. Law enforcement responded quickly, and a massive search effort was launched, eventually involving hundreds of volunteers, police officers, K-9 units, and FBI agents. What investigators discovered next would only deepen the mystery surrounding Asha's disappearance. They found no fingerprints on the doorknob of the family's front door, suggesting it might have been wiped clean. However, they did determine that Asha had packed a backpack before leaving. Her parents noted several missing items: a pair of blue jeans with a red stripe, a long-sleeved white shirt with purple lettering, black sneakers, a black and beige purse, and a Tweety Bird purse containing photos of her family. Another disturbing detail emerged through interviews with family members. Asha was afraid of dogs and, more significantly, she was afraid of the dark. She wouldn't even go to the bathroom alone at night without calling for her mother. How then did the same child walk out alone in the pitch black, in the rain, along a rural highway? This contradiction between Asha's known fears and her actions that night represents one of the most perplexing aspects of the case. What could possibly motivate a child who feared the dark to venture out into a rainy, pitch-black night? What could be so compelling that it would override such a primal fear? As the search for Asha intensified, investigators began interviewing everyone who knew the family: teachers, church members, neighbors, relatives, anyone who might have insight into why Asha would leave her home or where she might have gone. No one could provide any explanation that made sense. There had been no signs of trouble at home, no indications that Asha was unhappy or planning to run away. 3 days after her disappearance, on February 17th, the investigation had its first significant breakthrough. Searchers found items belonging to Asha in a shed at a business along Highway 18, about a mile from where the truckers had spotted her. These items included a Mickey Mouse pencil, a marker, and distinctive candy wrappers. The shed was located on Turner's upholstery property, and the owner confirmed the items had not been there the previous day when he'd been working in the shed. This discovery confirmed that Asha had indeed been in that area and suggested she might have sought shelter from the rain. It also further validated the trucker's sightings. But it raised more questions. Why would she take shelter in the shed but then leave again? Where did she go afterward? And most importantly, was she still traveling alone at that point? The search continued with renewed vigor, but despite the efforts of hundreds of people combing the area, no additional signs of Asha were found. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, hope began to dim that she would be found alive. For a full year after Asha's disappearance, the investigation seemed to stall. Despite countless interviews, extensive searches, and national media coverage, no significant leads emerged. The Degree family lived in a perpetual state of uncertainty, clinging to hope while facing the crushing reality that with each passing day, the chances of finding Asha alive diminished. Then, in August 2001, a truly disturbing development occurred that would reignite the investigation and deepen the mystery surrounding Asha's fate. During a construction project along Highway 18, about 26 miles north of where Asha was last seen, workers made a grim discovery. While clearing land, they uncovered a child's backpack, double-wrapped in black plastic garbage bags and deliberately buried. The backpack was quickly turned over to investigators who confirmed it belonged to Asha Degree. Inside were several of her belongings: the clothes her parents had reported missing, school supplies, and perhaps most puzzlingly, a New Kids on the Block concert t-shirt that her family insisted had never belonged to her. The shirt was not something Asha owned, not something her parents had purchased, and not an item she would have had access to in their home. This discovery raised more questions than it answered. Who buried the backpack? Why wrap it so carefully in plastic before burying it? Was this done to preserve evidence or to hide it? And most importantly, what happened to Asha after her backpack was buried? The location, 26 miles from where she was last seen walking, strongly suggested she had gotten into a vehicle at some point. A 9-year-old child could not have traveled that distance on foot without being spotted. The presence of the unfamiliar T-shirt introduced an entirely new and troubling dimension to the case. Where did it come from? Why was it in Asha's backpack? Could it have belonged to whoever was responsible for her disappearance? Or was it given to her as some sort of gift or enticement? Forensic analysts meticulously examined the backpack and its contents for DNA evidence, fingerprints, fibers, or any other trace evidence that might point to who had handled it. The results of these tests have never been publicly disclosed, suggesting they may be crucial to the ongoing investigation. The discovery of the backpack transformed the investigation from a missing person case to a likely abduction. The careful way it had been wrapped and buried indicated premeditation and an attempt to conceal evidence. It was no longer possible to maintain the theory that Asha had simply run away. Someone had taken her, and that someone had gone to considerable lengths to hide evidence of their crime. Throughout the next several years, the investigation would proceed in fits and starts. Periodic news coverage would generate new tips, which investigators would pursue. Sex offenders in the area were interviewed and investigated. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released age progression photos showing what Asha might look like as she grew older. But still, no definitive answers emerged. In 2015, 15 years after Asha's disappearance, investigators announced they were seeking information about a distinctive vehicle that may have been involved in her disappearance. An early 1970s Lincoln Continental Mark IV or a Ford Thunderbird, dark green or black in color, with rust around the wheel wells. According to their investigation, Asha may have entered this vehicle along Highway 18 between 3:45 a.m. and 6 a.m. on the day she disappeared. This was a significant development because it was the first time authorities had publicly indicated they had information about a specific vehicle. It suggested they had obtained new information or reanalyzed existing evidence to identify this car. However, the announcement did not reveal how they had connected this vehicle to Asha's case, and no suspects were named. Despite widespread publicity about the vehicle, no conclusive leads developed. The car and its driver remained as mysterious as Asha's fate. In 2018, another potentially significant announcement came from the FBI. They released information about 2 items they believed might be connected to Asha's case. The aforementioned Dr. Seuss, the New Kids on the Block concert T-shirt found in her backpack, and a children's book called McElligot's Pool. They asked anyone who recognized these items or knew someone who had them in February 2000 to come forward. The mention of the book was particularly interesting because it had not previously been connected to the case in public statements. Was it found with Asha's belongings? Was it something she had been reading before her disappearance? Or did it have some other significance to the investigation? Authorities did not clarify, again suggesting that these details might be crucial to an ongoing investigation that they did not want to compromise. As the case dragged on with no resolution, numerous theories emerged about what might have happened to Asha Degree. These theories generally fall into several categories, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. One of the earliest and most persistent theories is that Asha left home voluntarily, perhaps planning to return, but encountered someone who took advantage of the situation. This theory is supported by the evidence that she packed a backpack and left without signs of a struggle. It's also consistent with the sightings of her walking alone along Highway 18. However, it doesn't explain why a child afraid of the dark would choose to leave in the middle of the night during a rainstorm or how she exited the house without waking anyone. Another theory suggests she may have been lured from her home by someone she knew or trusted. This might explain her willingness to leave despite her fears. Some have speculated that she might have been groomed by someone who gained her trust over time and convinced her to meet them. This theory gains some credibility from the fact that her family was very protective and she wouldn't have been allowed to go out alone to meet someone during normal hours, potentially necessitating the middle-of-the-night departure. Some investigators have explored whether Asha's basketball game lost the weekend before her disappearance might have played a role. Although her parents said she had gotten over her disappointment, could she have been more upset than they realized? Might she have been planning to practice basketball somewhere, explaining why she left in the early morning hours? This theory seems weak given the weather conditions and the fact that a 9-year-old would likely understand she couldn't practice basketball in the middle of the night in the rain. One particularly compelling theory involves the book The Whipping Boy by Sid Fleischman, which Asha's class had been reading at the time of her disappearance. In the story, a young boy runs away from home. Some have speculated that Asha might have been inspired by this story, possibly misunderstanding its message or connecting with it in some way that prompted her to leave. Children are often more influenced by stories than adults realize, and this theory might explain the premeditated nature of her departure, the packed backpack, and careful exit from the house. Another theory points to the possibility that she might have been planning a surprise for Valentine's Day, perhaps sneaking out to buy or create a gift for her parents, explaining why she left on that particular night. However, no evidence has been found to support this idea, and it doesn't explain how she would have planned to make a purchase in the middle of the night or where she would have gotten money. Some have even suggested that Asha might have been sleepwalking when she left her home, which could explain how a child afraid of the dark ended up walking alone at night. However, there was no history of sleepwalking in Asha's past, and the preparations for departure, packing a backpack with specific items, seem inconsistent with sleepwalking behavior. There's also the troubling possibility that someone within Asha's circle of trust was involved in her disappearance. While investigators have never publicly named any suspects, it's standard procedure in missing child cases to closely examine family members, friends, and acquaintances. By all accounts, the Degree family has cooperated fully with the investigation from the beginning, and no evidence has emerged to implicate them or anyone close to them in Asha's disappearance. If you're as invested in seeing justice for Asha as I am, please consider subscribing to our channel. We work hard to bring attention to cases like this that deserve resolution. As the investigation continued, law enforcement employed various techniques to generate new leads. In 2012, on the 12th anniversary of Asha's disappearance, the FBI and local authorities conducted a coordinated media campaign to bring renewed attention to the case. Digital billboards featuring Asha's image and information about the case were displayed throughout North Carolina. In 2015, coinciding with the announcement about the vehicle of interest, the FBI announced a $25,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible for Asha's disappearance. The Cleveland County Sheriff's Office added an additional $20,000, bringing the total reward to $45,000. In February 2019, on the 19th anniversary of Asha's disappearance, the FBI conducted another targeted search in the area where her backpack had been found years earlier. Agents were seen with specialized equipment methodically searching a specific area. They did not disclose what prompted this renewed search effort, but it suggested they had received new information or were re-examining existing evidence with new technology. Also in 2019, investigators revealed they were looking at a possible connection between Asha's case and convicted sex offenders in nearby counties. Again, no specific suspects were named, but the announcement indicated the investigation was still actively pursuing leads. In 2020, for the 20th anniversary of Asha's disappearance, there was another push for public attention to the case. The FBI released enhanced versions of the age progression photos showing what Asha might look like at age 29. Local and national media covered the anniversary extensively, featuring interviews with the Degree family and updates on the investigation. Throughout these years, the Degree family never gave up hope of finding answers about what happened to their daughter. Every year on February 14th, they organize a walk from their home to the billboard featuring Asha's photo that stands along Highway 18. Community members join them in the solemn procession, a testament to how deeply Asha's disappearance has affected the entire community of Shelby. Aquila Degree, Asha's mother, has often spoken about her unwavering belief that her daughter will be found. "I just try to keep going day by day, just praying and hoping that one day somebody will say something," she told reporters on the 20th anniversary of Asha's disappearance. Harold Degree, Asha's father, has expressed similar sentiments of faith and determination. Despite the passage of time, the Degree family's resolve to find their daughter has never wavered. Their advocacy has kept Asha's case in the public eye for over 2 decades, ensuring that it never becomes just another cold case file gathering dust. O'Brien Degree, Asha's brother, was only 10 years old when his sister disappeared. Now an adult, he continues to participate in the annual walks and events that keep Asha's memory alive. The impact of losing his sister at such a young age has undoubtedly shaped his life in profound ways, yet he has stood alongside his parents in their tireless search for answers. The impact of Asha's disappearance extended far beyond her immediate family. In a small, close-knit community like Shelby, North Carolina, the abduction of a child shattered the sense of safety and security that residents had long taken for granted. Parents became more protective of their children. Doors that once remained unlocked were now bolted shut. The innocence of childhood seemed suddenly vulnerable in a way it hadn't before. The community's response to this tragedy was remarkable. In the immediate aftermath of Asha's disappearance, hundreds of volunteers joined the search efforts, combing through woods, fields, and abandoned buildings. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the community continued to support the Degree family both emotionally and practically. Local businesses displayed posters with Asha's photo and information about her case. The local newspaper regularly featured updates on the investigation and reminders about the reward for information. When the reward fund was established, community members contributed generously, demonstrating their ongoing commitment to finding Asha. For law enforcement agencies, Asha's case represents one of their most challenging and haunting investigations. The Cleveland County Sheriff's Office, the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, and the FBI have collaborated on this case for over 2 decades, allocating significant resources to finding Asha and bringing those responsible for her disappearance to justice. Investigators assigned to the case have spoken about how it has affected them personally. Many have remained involved long after they might have moved on to other assignments, driven by a determination to provide answers to the Degree family and justice for Asha. For them, this is not merely a professional obligation but a moral imperative. The frustration of the investigation stems largely from the scarcity of physical evidence and the contradictory nature of what little is known. How does a child afraid of the dark leave her home in the middle of the night during a storm? How does she travel 26 miles without being seen by anyone other than 2 truckers? Who placed that unfamiliar t-shirt in her backpack? And why bury it if the goal was to dispose of evidence? For behavioral analysts studying the case, Asha's actions that night have been particularly difficult to explain. Children of her age typically don't engage in the kind of complex, premeditated behavior that would be required to pack a backpack, leave home undetected in the middle of the night, and walk along a highway alone. This suggests either some powerful motivation that has yet to be understood or the influence of another person who somehow convinced her to overcome her fears. The FBI has repeatedly stated that they believe there are people in the community who have information about Asha's disappearance but have not come forward, whether out of fear, loyalty, or uncertainty about the significance of what they know. These individuals might hold the key to unlocking the mystery of what happened to Asha. In public statements, law enforcement has emphasized that even seemingly small or insignificant details could be crucial to the investigation. A car seen in the area that night, a person acting strangely in the days following Asha's disappearance, an unexplained absence from work or school, any of these could be the missing piece that investigators need. In 2021, advances in forensic technology prompted a re-examination of physical evidence collected in the case. While the specifics of this analysis have not been made public, it reflects the ongoing commitment of law enforcement to utilize every available tool in their search for answers. Social media has also played an increasing role in keeping Asha's case in the public eye. Facebook groups dedicated to discussing her disappearance have thousands of members who share information, theories, and updates about the case. These online communities serve both to keep the memory of Asha alive and to potentially reach individuals who might have information but were not previously aware of her case. As we delve deeper into this baffling case, certain questions continue to perplex investigators and armchair detectives alike. The timeline of Asha's disappearance contains several critical gaps that have never been filled. What happened between 2:30 a.m. when her father checked on her and 3:15 a.m. when she was first spotted on Highway 18? How did she exit the house without waking anyone? Did she have help or was she acting entirely on her own? The trucker's sightings raised their own questions. One reported that when his headlights illuminated Asha, she ran into the woods beside the highway. Was she afraid of being discovered? Was she meeting someone in those woods? Or was she simply startled by the sudden appearance of the truck? Then there's the 18-hour gap between the last confirmed sighting of Asha around 3:15 to 3:30 a.m. and the discovery that she was missing at 6:30 a.m. the following morning. What happened during those crucial hours? Was she already in danger, or was she still traveling alone? Had she already encountered the person who would ultimately be responsible for her disappearance? These questions have haunted investigators for years, driving them to revisit evidence, re-interview witnesses, and pursue new angles of investigation. The answers remain elusive, but the determination to find them has never wavered. In 2022, the FBI announced they were using new techniques to analyze soil samples taken from the area where Asha's backpack was found. While they did not specify what they were looking for, this demonstrated the ongoing application of advancing forensic science to this decades-old case. Throughout these years, the media coverage of Asha's disappearance has evolved. What began as local news quickly became a national story, featured on shows like America's Most Wanted, Unsolved Mysteries, and Disappeared. With the rise of true crime podcasts and docuseries, Asha's case has been the subject of numerous episodes, introducing her story to a new generation of viewers and listeners. This enduring media interest has been crucial in keeping the case active. Each new round of coverage generates tips, some of which have led to significant developments in the investigation. It also serves as a reminder to those with information that the case has not been forgotten and that law enforcement is still actively seeking answers. As we enter 2023 and beyond, the search for Asha Degree continues with undiminished determination. The FBI maintains an active case file, regularly reviewing evidence and pursuing new leads. The reward for information stands at $45,000, a testament to how seriously law enforcement and the community take this case even after more than 2 decades. For the Degree family, the passage of time has brought a complex mixture of grief, hope, and resilience. In interviews marking the 23rd anniversary of Asha's disappearance in 2023, Aquila Degree expressed the sentiment that has guided her through this ordeal. Every day, I wake up thinking this might be the day we get answers. This unwavering hope in the face of such prolonged uncertainty is perhaps the most poignant aspect of the Degree family's story. They have somehow found the strength to continue their daily lives, working, participating in community events, attending church, while carrying the weight of not knowing what happened to their daughter. Harold Degree has spoken about how faith has sustained the family through their darkest hours. We believe that God knows where Asha is, and that one day, He will lead us to the truth, he said during a prayer vigil on the anniversary of her disappearance. The psychological toll of such an experience is immeasurable. Mental health experts who work with families of missing children describe a unique form of grief called ambiguous loss, where the lack of closure prevents the normal processes of mourning and healing. Without knowing whether their loved one is alive or dead, families exist in a state of suspended animation, unable to fully move forward yet unwilling to give up hope. For O'Brien Degree, growing up in the shadow of his sister's disappearance has shaped his entire life. As a child, he had to navigate the sudden intense focus on his family, the constant presence of law enforcement, and the profound grief of his parents. As an adult, he has become a voice for his sister, participating in interviews and events to keep her case in the public eye. In a rare interview given on the 20th anniversary of Asha's disappearance, O'Brien described how he has struggled with feelings of guilt, the survivor's guilt of the sibling who remained safe while his sister vanished. "There are days I wonder why it was her and not me," he admitted. "I was older. I should have heard something that night." These sentiments reflect the ripple effects of trauma that extend far beyond the immediate event. The disappearance of a child affects not just the parents but siblings, extended family, friends, and the broader community, each in their own profound way. For investigators, Asha's case represents a particular type of challenge. Child abductions by strangers are statistically rare, accounting for less than 1% of missing child cases according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. When they do occur, they often follow predictable patterns that help guide the investigation. But Asha's case defies these patterns in significant ways. Most child abductions occur with little or no warning, with the child being taken suddenly from a location where they were legitimately present, a park, a walk home from school, their own backyard. The fact that Asha apparently left her home willingly in the middle of the night makes her case highly unusual. Similarly, most child abductions are opportunistic, with the perpetrator taking advantage of a momentary lack of supervision. The circumstances of Asha's disappearance suggest either meticulous planning or an extraordinary coincidence that someone happened to be on that rural highway at precisely the time an unaccompanied 9-year-old girl was walking alone. Behavioral analysts who have studied the case have offered several theories about what might have motivated Asha to leave her home that night. One possibility is that she was responding to some form of grooming or manipulation by an adult she trusted. This would explain both her willingness to overcome her fear of the dark and the premeditated nature of her departure, the packed backpack and careful exit from the house. Another theory suggests that she might have been experiencing some form of distress or conflict that was not apparent to her family. Children sometimes lack the emotional vocabulary to express complex feelings and may resort to dramatic actions when they feel unheard or misunderstood. However, all accounts of Asha's home life describe a loving, supportive environment, making this scenario seem less likely. The timing of her disappearance, Valentine's Day, has also been scrutinized for potential significance. Was this date chosen deliberately by someone who planned to lure Asha from her home? Or was it merely a tragic coincidence? The symbolism of the date has added an additional layer of poignancy to the case, particularly as the Degree family transformed it into a day of remembrance and advocacy through their annual walk. In 2023, developments in genetic genealogy and forensic DNA analysis offered new possibilities for cold cases like Asha's. These techniques have led to breakthroughs in long-unsolved crimes by identifying perpetrators through family DNA matches in public databases. While the FBI has not publicly announced the use of these methods in Asha's case, they have become standard tools in missing persons investigations where biological evidence exists. The digital age has also brought new resources to bear on the case. Online communities dedicated to discussing and investigating unsolved crimes have taken an interest in Asha's disappearance, combing through publicly available information for overlooked clues or connections. While these amateur sleuths must be careful not to spread misinformation or interfere with the official investigation, they can sometimes provide fresh perspectives or identify obscure connections that might have been missed. Private investigators and retired law enforcement professionals have also volunteered their expertise to the case over the years. Their efforts, coordinated with official investigators, have helped ensure that no potential avenue of inquiry is overlooked. For the community of Shelby, North Carolina, Asha's disappearance has become a defining event, a collective wound that has never fully healed. In many ways, it represents a loss of innocence for the entire community, a stark reminder that even in close-knit, rural towns, children are not immune to danger. Yet, remarkably, it has also showcased the community's capacity for compassion, solidarity, and perseverance. The annual walk organized by the Degree family draws hundreds of participants, many with no personal connection to Asha but a shared commitment to keeping her memory alive and finding answers. Local schools have incorporated Asha's story into their safety education programs, teaching children about personal safety without resorting to fear tactics. Her disappearance has thus become not just a tragedy to be mourned but a lesson to be learned from, potentially protecting other children from similar fates. The media coverage of Asha's case has evolved over the years, reflecting broader changes in how missing persons cases are reported and discussed. In the early days, coverage focused primarily on the search efforts and pleas for information. As time passed without resolution, the narrative shifted to exploring the various theories about what might have happened and the impact on the Degree family and community. With the rise of true crime as a popular genre, Asha's story has been featured in numerous podcasts, documentaries, and books. While this increased exposure has helped keep the case in the public consciousness, it has also sometimes led to sensationalism or speculation that can be painful for those closest to the case. Law enforcement agencies have had to navigate this changing media landscape carefully, releasing enough information to generate useful tips while withholding details that might compromise the investigation. They've also had to contend with the double-edged sword of social media, which can spread awareness rapidly but also circulate misinformation or unsubstantiated rumors. One of the most poignant aspects of Asha's case is the contrast between the seemingly idyllic circumstances of her life and the mysterious tragedy that befell her. By all accounts, she was a happy, well-adjusted child with loving parents, a stable home, and a bright future ahead of her. There were none of the risk factors typically associated with missing children cases. No family dysfunction, no signs of abuse or neglect, no history of running away. This stark contrast underscores the seemingly random nature of her disappearance, the sense that it could have happened to any child, in any family, in any community. It's this universality that perhaps explains why her story has resonated so deeply with so many people over the decades. As the investigation continued into 2024, law enforcement agencies reaffirmed their commitment to finding Asha and bringing those responsible for her disappearance to justice. This is not a cold case, an FBI spokesperson emphasized during a press briefing. It is an active, ongoing investigation with regular developments and new information being pursued. This distinction is important both practically and symbolically. Cold cases typically receive fewer resources and less attention than active investigations. By explicitly stating that Asha's case remains active, law enforcement signals both to the public and to any potential perpetrators that they have not moved on, that the pursuit of justice continues unabated. The investigation has also benefited from advances in technology and forensic science that were not available in 2000. DNA analysis has become more sensitive, capable of extracting useful information from ever smaller samples. Digital forensics can recover data from devices that were once thought to be unreadable. Artificial intelligence algorithms can analyze vast amounts of data, identifying patterns or connections that human investigators might miss. Whether any of these technologies have yielded significant breakthroughs in Asha's case remains unknown to the public. Law enforcement typically keeps such details confidential to protect the integrity of the investigation. But the mere existence of these new capabilities offers hope that evidence once deemed insufficient might now provide the crucial link to solving the case. As we approach the 25th anniversary of Asha's disappearance in 2025, her case stands as a testament to the enduring impact of a single human life. A 9-year-old girl who vanished on a rainy February night continues to inspire searches, generate media coverage, and touch hearts across the nation and beyond. For those who have followed this case over the years, certain questions continue to haunt. Why would a child afraid of the dark leave her home in the middle of the night during a rainstorm? How did she exit the house without anyone hearing her? What was in her backpack when she left, and why was it found buried 26 miles away more than a year later? Why was there a t-shirt in the backpack that didn't belong to her? The behavior experts who have examined this case suggest that it's extremely unusual for a 9-year-old child to plan and execute a departure from home in the middle of the night without some external influence. Children this age typically don't have the capacity for that level of premeditated action, especially one that goes against their established fears and behaviors. If you're as invested in seeing justice for Asha as I am, please consider subscribing to our channel. We work hard to bring attention to cases like this that deserve resolution. What we do know is that Asha's parents have steadfastly maintained their innocence, and no evidence has ever implicated them in her disappearance. In fact, they have been tireless advocates for keeping their daughter's case alive in the public consciousness. Every year on February 14th, they speak to the media, reminding the world that their daughter is still missing and that someone, somewhere, knows something. In 2025, as we mark a quarter-century since Asha Degree walked out of her home and into one of America's most baffling mysteries, the search for answers continues. Age progression photos now show what Asha might look like in her mid-30s. A woman with a career, perhaps a family of her own, a life that was stolen from her that February night. For the Degree family, the pain of not knowing has not diminished with time. 25 years is both a lifetime and the blink of an eye, Aquila Degree reflected in a recent interview. There are days when it feels like yesterday, and days when I can barely remember what life was like before. Yet despite this enduring pain, the Degree family continues to approach each day with dignity, grace, and hope. They have transformed their personal tragedy into a platform for advocacy, not just for Asha but for all missing children and their families. Their message to others facing similar circumstances is one of resilience. You will have days when you can't get out of bed, Harold Degree advised in a speech to families of missing children. And that's okay. But then you get up the next day and keep fighting, because your child deserves nothing less. As investigators continue to pursue leads and the community continues to support the search for answers, the case of Asha Degree remains, as the FBI poster describing her case states, missing from Shelby, North Carolina since February 14, 2000. But she is far from forgotten. In the words of Aquila Degree, a plea that has been repeated countless times over the years. I don't care how small it is, how insignificant you may think it is. Let us decide. This is the plea of a mother who has spent more than 2 decades searching for her daughter. It's a reminder that in cases like Asha's, the smallest detail could be the key that unlocks the entire mystery. As true crime enthusiasts, we share in the hope that one day soon, the mystery of what happened to Asha Degree will be solved, and her family will finally have the answers they've been seeking for so long. If you have any information about the disappearance of Asha Degree, please contact the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office at 704-484-4788, the FBI at 704-672-6100, or submit a tip anonymously to the FBI's website. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of America's most baffling missing persons cases. Remember to subscribe and join us next time as we explore another true crime story that deserves attention. Until then, stay safe, stay aware, and remember that someone somewhere knows something about Asha Degree.